big welcome to Point Blank this Thursday evening. My name is Patrick Omo-Osagie. Today, we have two very serious issues to discuss. I call them serious because, one of the things that is boiling all over America today is about what? About the killing of American black youth. So I would have on set with me later a young lady that we're going to discuss this. I call her a young lady because she's actually young. She's a final year student at the university. I'll bring her on set for us to discuss the issues. I'll call them about Black Lives Matter, but it's really about what really matters to the youth of America today. But before we go into that, I'm going to have her here and for us to actually discuss something which is actually of very big importance to parents like myself, parents of Americans who are of Nigerian heritage. We'll be discussing Nigerian issues with American kids. So let me again welcome you to Point Blank. My name is Patrick Omo-Osagie. I'll take a quick break, and when I come back, I'll be joined on set by my guest. So let's take that break right now. Welcome back to Point Blank. This evening, we're going to be discussing two major issues. One is on our culture, the Nigerian culture, with our American-born kids. And the second is we're going to talk about what is really around in the American sphere right now, the issues around Black Lives Matter, the issues about young black men being killed by police officers. And like I said, I have in the studio here today with me a young lady who's an intern here with us in this program. Her name is Judith Onwuka. She's a senior journalism student at the University of North Texas. She's of Igbo origin, even though she was born in Nigeria, but she's lived the majority of her years here in America, so she's really an American-born or trained young lady. Let me welcome to the program Judith. Judith, welcome.
Hello, Mr. Osagie.
Let me say this very quickly. I mean, I have children that are Americans, but obviously of Nigerian heritage or origin. What does it feel like to be an American of Nigerian heritage? Because there's obviously a difference of what I would call a black American. I mean, you're obviously a black American, but you have Nigerian heritage. What's the feeling? Can you, from your experience of being obviously a senior at the university now, can you just give the audience a little bit of how you see yourself?
Okay.
Because of your background, of your particular background.
Okay. Well, being at the university, once I entered college, I noticed that there was a little bit of a divide in the sense of Nigerian-born Americans and those who are international students who are also of Nigerian heritage being here. I had a few discussions with some friends of mine who are international-born, and they came here. And I once asked them about this club that most universities have called ASO, African Student Organization. And I once asked them, why not join ASO? And their reactions were kind of hesitant in the sense that they felt that there was a cliquish feel or divide. They didn't feel as welcomed. Mm-hmm. And I wondered, why was that? Why is there a divide? Are we all not the same?
Okay, so your first experience at that level really was that you saw that divide.
Yes.
Now, was it obviously was some kind of cultural divide? Was it a language? Was it food? Was it dressing? What I'm doing here now is, using all the cultural tenets of language, food, dressing and all that. Did it have anything to do with that, or just the makeup, the upbringing? What was it that really struck you, or what did you think was the issue? Because obviously you realized there's an issue.
Yes.
Now, could it have been the upbringing? It's a different upbringing from Lagos or wherever in Nigeria, and a different upbringing from Houston. But even though you have the same background, which is
yes.
Nigerian heritage. So what did you see?
Well, what I noticed from that is the international born that came to university to study, they already have preconceived notions of the Nigerians here, in the sense that maybe the way they hang out, the way they speak, the way they act, the meshing of it. Whereas Nigerian borns in America, they look at the Nigerians as like too like village-like, in the sense of, they call them fobs, fresh off the boat. They really don't, they can't really adjust in the sense of the way they adjust. Nigerian-born Americans have, you know, kind of cultivated some aspects of culture. They've blended in. They know a certain things that the ones coming in aren't aware of. So it's kind of like it's your people, but your people already have these ideals.
So both sides actually have, and I'll throw it out there, have negative opinion or views about, you know, those of you that are Americans.
Yes.
And here's where I always differentiate, because I have this argument all the time with my friends, you know. I call my kids American Nigerians, not Nigerian Americans. Yes. Because they're Americans first. Because all their life has been here, all their upbringing, all their cultural traits are American. So I refer to them as American Nigerians. Now, so those American Nigerians like you have, and I use the word a little bit with caution, have some negative views about Nigerians coming into America to go to school, or maybe just to reestablish. Right. And can you just give me an idea, or give us an idea? And I said, I'm being cautious here, using the word negative. But what is it that you see that you dislike, or you don't, is unacceptable to? Let's not use dislike. It's kind of unacceptable to. Is it the dressing? Is it the language? What is it exactly that you see that, you know, you would not, that you don't agree with? Let's put it that way.
That I don't agree in this terms of international?
Yeah, in terms of international Nigerians that come out here to school. Because we've established that there's obviously a divide.
Oh, yes.
Now, what is, and I said most divides become negative. But I said, let's be careful. Let's not use negative, really. But what is it that, you know, is unacceptable? Look, I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. I'm well into my 50s. I'm closer to 60 than, you know. When my friends come out here that live in Nigeria, friends, you know, great friends, the one thing I dislike about them is that they're very noisy. They're really very noisy. We go into Macy's, they want to shop, and their phone rings. And then you have to pick up the phone. True, I'll pick up my phone, but most of the time I'm probably going to talk lightly and probably say I'll call back. No, my friends just go on and just blab, and everybody's looking around. And at times I have to call them, look, you can't do that. They get offended. So I dislike that. Right. I dislike that. You know, you know, when we get out of there, I say, look, you can't do that. You just can't be, you know, because Nigerians, for whatever reasons, also think that the person they're talking to on the other side is deaf. So they shout. So now, so you give me what you see in your age group that you don't particularly agree with, and that probably has a conflict line, that draws a conflict line between both groups.
Okay. One thing from the conversations I've had is when it comes to Americanized, like just Black Americans.
Yes.
One of the main things they've said is they have these already born stereotypes of them before even getting to know some, based on, I don't know if it's parental or what they tell about the Western world. And so when they come and they see other Nigerians maybe hanging with them or something like that, they make harsh judgments on why are they hanging with these people. Don't you know, like, they're like this, they're like that. And for us who have grown up in schools with them, kind of interacted, yes, there are some things we've noticed about them. But at the same time, we don't generalize. Because we've been around them, we know how they are. You know, they don't have those same experiences to judge.
Let me use the word you should probably use next time. Those coming from home are very judgmental.
Yes.
They've made their judgment as to who African Americans are, and they don't think that maybe Nigerians, or even though of growing up here in America, they don't think they should be the best of friends. So they just make that judgment and then they hold that against you.
Yes.
So that's what you say. Now that's interesting. But look, let's take another, let's branch out of that now, because you've established really that there's a kind of a conflict already existing. But let's look at more of how you have grown up. Speaking to you off the camera, I also noticed that you speak the Igbo language very fluently. And that's obviously a credit to your parents. I mean, because look, like I said, obviously I'm in the same situation as your parents. I have 3 American kids. I mean, but unfortunately for me, if I use the word unfortunate, I'm Benin from Edo State, and my wife is Ekiti from, obviously Ekiti State. So we speak Edo, and she speaks Yoruba. What do my kids learn? I don't know. But how was it that your parents have been able to instill the language in you? Because there's no doubt that is probably the toughest thing that Nigerians are having to deal with now when it comes to culture.
So as far as the way that I was raised, when I came here at 3 with my mother, we came to America. My mom has never once, she doesn't speak English to me because in her mind, she knows when I go to school, I'll be exposed to it. The movies I watch, I'm exposed to it. My friends, I'm exposed to it. It's all around me. But knowing this, in her mind, she started from a young age to keep speaking that language around me in the house. So as to get a little bit of that culture that I'm not as exposed to outside of the home, to kind of be instilled within me to help me remember. Because at the same time, even though I'm in America, I was raised as an American, I'm still Nigerian as my roots, and I don't want to forget that.
And that's interesting, even though I look at it a little bit slightly different. I mean, yeah, I'll put it this way. I'd love every kid to have or to be able to speak a second language. I'm not going to be insisting that it's got to be the language that of me, of a parent or something. I think, most people should at least try to be a little bit bilingual, I just think that's what's good. But let's leave language a little bit for now. And then, look, let's do this. Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, I'll continue with my guest here, who's Judith Onwuka. She's our intern here at MBC. And she's a senior journalism student at the University of North Texas. She was born in Nigeria, left Nigeria very early, and she's grown up in the last several years here. So she's really more Americanized than Nigerianized, if I have to put it that way.
Yeah.
But we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Point Blank. You can reach or hashtag this program at hashtag Point Blank, or reach me, tweet at me at PJ-Osagie. I mean, I didn't ask for Judith's Twitter handle, but hey, you can find her, watch this program or anytime, anywhere on MBCLiveTV.com. Now she'll be there, and then you can actually look for her at some time and ask her questions or make your comments, direct your comments to her. But so let's go back to what we're talking about. We've just talked about language. Now, you are very, I'll put it, very vested as a young Igbo lady. Do you have American Nigerian friends of other tribes, a Yoruba friend, an Hausa friend, a Bini friend, and all that? Do you?
I do. I have a few Yoruba friends as well as Igbo friends. Mm-hmm. And they're not all, as I am, raised in America. Some of them came international students mm-hmm. and are schooling with me. So I've been exposed quite from their perspectives.
Good. Do they, I mean, those that were born here mm-hmm. or that have been here for a lot more time, do they speak Yoruba? Do they speak Igbo? Or you're one of those that is, I mean, because look, there's no doubt. You can ask any Nigerian or that has kids here today. It's probably the toughest thing I don't want to use the word we fight, but it's the toughest thing for us because we're obviously losing our language.
Yes.
But, you know, do you, are these your friends? I mean, are they, do they speak the language?
As far as my Igbo friends, they don't speak it. They'll know a few words. They'll understand a few, but not completely. And I've come across some that they've told me that they would love to have learned or want to learn. Even my own cousin wants to learn. And let me even ask this question, and it kind of just came to me. Is there a difference between the male or the female? And what's the tendencies? I mean, do the males speak at all? I mean, do they have that affinity to want to be cultural, have that Nigerian culture impacted on them? Do you notice that? As far as the Igbo men, they're more concerned, the ones that are raised here, they're more concerned with their career. They're career focused in that sense of culture and trying to make something of themselves, as well as the women. But as far as like things like language and like things of that sort, they're not really invested so much from what I've seen compared to some of my female friends. They're the ones that'll bring topics like, oh, you know how to speak it and things like that nature. Okay, good. Look, let's jump away from that and see one other aspect of our culture that, oh God, I mean, parents are dying if they are daughters in particular, even though I actually insist a little bit with my son, and which is cooking. I mean, in Nigeria, I don't know what the age that ladies or young girls start to learn to cook, but I know I have an almost 16-year-old daughter, and I don't want to say we're finding it difficult, but you know, she can do certain things. Obviously, she can cook rice and spaghetti, and you know, and but I guess the issue of soup is a little bit, it's almost a different concept to any kid or anybody that grows up in America here. Now, with my son, it's a little bit different. I mean, I keep telling my son that he just has to learn to do things himself, you know. Right. It's better for him to have a pretty good idea of, you know, I mean, I know there are some men, I mean, there's some of my mates that can't boil water. So those are things I keep insisting on my son that he has to learn to do. I mean, and thank God, you know, he's obviously American, but a lot Americanized. He can barbecue, you know, so that's fine. I mean, that's good for him. Right. I always tell him that, you know, you got to be able to do certain things. But let's look at you in particular and your surrounding. What is cooking like? Is it something that, you know, do you have to go through almost a manual with your mom or with your aunt? Or who's teaching you how to cook? Okay, in my family, the main person that teaches me how to cook is my mother. And I can go back to maybe that time I was 8 to 10 years old, before I was even a teenager. She would, every Saturday morning, she would wake me up. She called my name, Kosi, come on, it's time. Get up, get up, get up. And me as a child, even middle school, entering high school, she continued that. And I will sometimes fight, either it's out of laziness or I'm tired, or I'll try to refuse. But at the end of the day, I know it's better for me. And I will go. And now, entering college when I was a freshman, moving to an apartment from dorm, you no longer have meal plans. Now you have to fend for yourself. You do it all by yourself, yeah. All of a sudden, those things my mom has been instilling in me, I now have to use it. And I, you know, start cooking. If there's something I don't know, I ask my mom. She said, you have to add this, add that. Then I, you know, start. And even my roommates, they'll come to me, Judith, how did you cook that? So it's like... Let me give you a moment of advice, you know. She can put those little advice on YouTube, you know. Yeah. So just not you, for other young ladies. I mean, it's about time some parent does a YouTube video of how to cook some of our very different dishes. But
let's move away from that because look, we're talking about something very interesting. Again, you're watching Point Blank this Thursday evening, and on set with me is a very, very fine young lady, and I'm sure most of you would agree with me, Mrs. Judith, I'm sorry, Miss Judith Onka, who's a final year student of journalism at North Texas University, and we're discussing right now really almost something based on our culture, the differences between a typical American raised Nigerian and a Nigerian coming from the other side. But we're really looking more at some of the cultural traits that we have to establish here. And let's go to this one because it's very important. You, at your age now, you have an awful lot of friends. You're in your senior in college. You've met an awful lot of different types of people, different types of Nigerians and all that. And again, I talk as a parent. One of our concerns is always, what kind of friends would my daughter, would my son make? And do you get advice from your parents as to who to lean towards, who not? And let me say something very quickly here. I had a friend, I mean, we were all friends. I mean, I lived in Canada, and I had this friend that, you know, she has 2 boys and a girl. She used to make so much fuss when these kids were so much younger. Oh, we all have to stick together so that our kids don't marry outside and blah, 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 you know. And she used to kind of say, God, I can't just stand the thought of my son marrying a white girl. And I kind of used to just want, what's your business in who your son marries? To only know 2 years ago, I see a Christmas card sent to us, and here's a white girl standing with her son. And I'm like, what happened? She was the one in particular that used to raise that as really what she wouldn't want. And yet, her first son is married to a beautiful white girl. I mean, but she was concerned 10 years ago. And I used to tell her, you have no choice in this matter. What kind of advice do your parents give to you as regards not, I use associationships, you know, friendships, you know, because we're not talking about marriage. We're just talking about, do your parents say, I want you, you know, I don't want to talk to too many Nigerians from home. I don't want you to talk to many, you know, black Americans. I don't want you to talk to many white Americans. You know, I'm not, and please, anybody listening to us here shouldn't think this is about any racist connotations. We're talking about how we human beings address issues.
Right.
Parents are always concerned about relationships that their kids get into. What's the general advice that your mom or your father or your parents give to you?
My father has always told me, since he schooled here, first of all, in university, he was also an international student, went to Portland State, graduated. And his advice to me has always been, remember to find how someone's character is, because as a society we're in, being in America, everywhere is diverse. You cannot always stick with your own group, because if you stick with your own group, you'll never learn other ideals and opportunities in that sense. It's not to say you cannot be with your own, because again, what we as people are, we're most comfortable with those who are we recognize.
Yeah.
But don't feel afraid to step out only because of that. Don't let that be a limit for you, because you will never be able to go forward in whatever motives or goals that you wish to achieve. You will always work with someone that is not of the same background as you are.
Yeah, I mean, because you see, one of the things, and I know, I'm sure a lot of you Nigerians, I mean, listening to us, or even Africans listening, watching us this evening, you know, one of the things we always all talk about, God, I'm not going to, you know, you hear Nigeria is doing a business or something. Look, I'm not going to, you know, patronize. They're never serious. They're never on time. They're never this and that. You know, we have our own drawbacks. You know, things that, you know, kind of. Now, is there any advice on that line? And I'm not trying to expose your parents or anything, but you know, here we are trying to discuss culture, really as it relates to being an American and you know, coming from other you know, really other backgrounds. Look, I'm not what you would call an American. I mean, all my formative years were in Nigeria, right. But I'm here now with American kids. and obviously they're first American before any other thing. I mean, I know I said I always have that argument, but that's the simple truth. They've done nothing that relates to Nigeria upbringing. But the issue has always been, what do you let them know or accept that is culturally suitable to me? I mean, how do your parents relate to you on that? You know, leave friendship aside now. Let's look at it generally in a bigger, really big picture. How do your parents want you to relate with your culture, which I assume they think or should be Nigerian, and with your environment, which is American?
Okay. As far as that aspect, my mom instilled in me that I have to have a certain type of morality when it comes to decision making, who I spend time with, and all that sense. In order to find a good friend, you have to first seek out their character, and then, as far as the morality goes, is there a Christian base? It's not to say anyone that's not a Christian you separate yourselves from, because there are also those of other religions who they may not share your religion, but the character is wonderful.
Is what you want.
Yes. So, with that in mind, it doesn't matter if you're white or black or whatever. I have to see your character. And then, are you yourself acting in the type of way that I would want to surround myself with?
Well, that's good. I mean, because, you know, we know, I mean, the statement by the late Martin Luther King, it's got to be the context of, not the color of their skin, but the content of character. So, I mean, it's very interesting talking to you. So I'm going to have you back. I mean, not have you back. You're going to stay over to my next segment, in which I'm going to discuss now really the issues of young blacks in America. You know, we have the Black Lives Matter crew going up and down the whole place. We have the killings of young black people. I want to kind of share, I want you to share with the audience, being a young black lady, I mean, what your feelings are, and, you know, how you see these things, and possibly how you think this can be resolved. So we're going to take a quick break. When I come back, I'll still be here with Miss Judith. So we'll take that break right now. Welcome back to Point Blank. This Thursday, I've been joined so far by Miss Judith Onka. We've talked about how culturally we try to almost differentiate, and how we see ourselves, all the cultural traits that her Nigerian parents are really trying to instill in her. It's been a great program so far, and you got to wait till this second segment, which I'm going to start now. But before I do that, let me give you my point-blank views on this issue about Nigerian American kids. One of the things I have tried to do as a parent of American kids is really open up the world to them. There's a reason I left Nigeria. I left Nigeria because I did not see much of a future there for me, not to talk of for my kids. So I'm in a place that I obviously believe would be better for my kids. So I've tried my best to open up that world to them. Language has never been a concern of mine. I've always felt that if my kids need to learn a second language, they might as well learn a Chinese language. They have over 1 billion people to speak to. Now, fortunately, unfortunately for me, there's almost no language they can speak with me. I speak Edo, my wife speaks Yoruba. I speak Yoruba actually a lot better than the Edo language, because I grew up in the western part of Nigeria. In Lagos, went to school in Ibadan, went to school in Ife. So my Yoruba is a lot better than my Edo language. Yes, I speak both of them, but my wife doesn't speak Edo at all. So language has never been an issue. My issue about raising American Nigerian kids is to take advantage of a system that I believed in when I arrived here. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm not too concerned about who my kids eventually marry. That's not my business. I would hope that they will make good judgment to marry whoever they love. It's as simple as that. Am I concerned about what they eat, whether they can cook egusi and all that? You know, egusi is in commercial quantity all over Houston, all over America. They can buy it. All I hope is that they make enough money that they can buy food from outside. It doesn't bother me. That's the way I see things. Do they want to raise their own children? Do I want my children to be a lost generation of Nigeria? No. I hope that my country will continue to exist, continue to get better, so my children and my grandchildren can always refer to where they came from originally, which is Nigeria. That's all I can hope for. But am I going to try to beat my kids to be able to speak the language? No. Am I going to try to beat them because they can't cook the Nigerian food? No. Like I said, there's a lot of this in commercial quantity out there, so they'll go get it. So that's my point blank view on this topic. So let me welcome back Ms. Judith. Judith, welcome back.
Oh.
I mean, I'm sure my take on that was a little bit, I don't want to say surprising, but when I say that to a lot of my friends, people always, look, and that's the simple truth. There's a reason I came here. I chose America amongst all the other countries in the world because this is where I believe that, it was best for me to either explore who I am and who my kids can become. I mean, and that's a simple reason. But let's go to my next area. And like I said, I held you back to do this with you because, you're part of the new generation of African Americans. And we are in the news, let me put it that way. The killing by police officers has seemed really wholly unfair over the last several years. Now, what's your general view about this whole thing? When I say general view, we're talking about how do you see yourself as an African American within this society?
Okay.
Loaded question, huh?
Yes. I'm trying to see what angle I'll start. Well, as an African American in this society, the first thing I'll point to my classrooms. Mm-hmm. Okay. I go to a PWI, predominantly white institution, mm-hmm. University of North Texas. And if I look around me, at least every other person is of a Caucasian, is Caucasian, mm-hmm. Descent. So I look inside my classrooms, and there's not many minorities in those classrooms. So in my head, and based on being here, living here, I know that there is no doubt that institutional racism is not around. It's alive. I've heard stories, heard people's personal experiences, uncles, friends, about racial profiling. If you believe that racism is not alive, then I don't know what to tell you.
You use the word institutionalized racism. That's a pretty loaded word. I mean, and I say that because as you should very well know, that any racist act can easily be dealt with by the laws of this country. So I personally, and because you always said if you believe that, look, this racism, people are going to always find other people offensive, either for color, height, for whatever reasons. That's just human nature. But that it's an institution, I find that hard to believe because you will be punished. The system will punish you. I mean, I once worked for my late brother many years ago. He's got campus properties somewhere in Illinois, and he did very well. He probably never had more than 5 or 10 blacks renting his property. And the state actually visited him at one time and said, look, you don't seem to be renting enough to blacks. All my brother said, I didn't create the credit system. I check credits. And if you've got good credit, I rent to you. If you don't have good credit, I don't rent to you. And they took their file and left. Now, why I bring that as an example that he's black, but he doesn't have enough black people in his apartments. Mm-hmm. Not because of his own doing, but because of credit rating. If a lot of black students don't have, or their parents don't have good credit where they can rent an apartment from him, they will not live there. It was as simple as that. Now, institution, when you use the word institution, that means it is set in stone, mm-hmm. that, we're going to be racist. No individuals tend to be racist. I think I've had more individuals do it. I mean, I've taught in African American universities, I've taught in predominantly white universities, and the one thing I know for certain is that I've always been hired for, you know, for my qualifications or whatever. I wasn't hired or not hired because I was black or white. I mean, as you can see, I mean, and I'm sure the audience can see, I'm a very, very dark complexioned person. You can't mistake me for anything but a black man. Mm-hmm. But I've always been hired for my qualifications and nothing more. But let's leave that alone and actually talk about, and I mean, we'll wrap up with this now. I mean, really, I mean, these unusual killings of young black men, and there's some people that, and I don't want to say they argue either way, but they always believe something always must have happened prior to the shootings. We've had some very clear videos about almost wrongdoing, there's no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. But even with that, the country is still divided as to exactly what happens. Why does this keep happening?
Yes. And my answer to that is for people to really just do their research. I follow this, he's a professor at Howard University, mm-hmm. Mark Lamont Hill. Mm-hmm. He recently wrote a book that if you go on his Twitter, Mark Lamont Hill, you will see the book that shows the present times of what really is going on in America as far as racism and the divide of race is mm-hmm. concerned. Another author, Michael Denzel Smith, wrote another book called Invisible Man. And that alone, those books, if you read them, and also, in fact, to make things clear, I do a lot of research on my own time as far mm-hmm. as topics of these are concerned, and I came across an interview with NYPD officers, minority NYPD officers, with their own testimonies while being in the police mm-hmm. department. Anyone knows New York Police Department is heavy duty. So, and there was a fellow Nigerian man that was also on the panel. And the question to him was, what exactly are you seeing in these cases? Mm-hmm. And they say, from their own words, that there are things that are done undercover that the civilians are not aware of. One man also recorded his own evidence on his phone with among his supervisors. Yes, yeah. And the things that were recorded, he tried to put it in court. And the man, I believe the head of the person in charge of the whole police department, was going against it, even though the evidence was there. So it's just, I'm not saying that as you live as an African-American person in this United States, I'm not saying to give up, that you won't be able to go anywhere, that you're limited in a sense. However, one must know that there is color being seen. No one can come up to you and say, oh, I don't see color. If anyone that says I don't see color, why are you denying who I am? Color is part of who I am. Mm-hmm. It tells a lot of culture. Just be aware of your surroundings, the things that are happening. But at the same time, violence, I don't feel is not the answer. Is the answer.
Look, very well said. Look, I'm happy that you've joined me today. I mean, I know that we really hope you're enjoying your summer out here with us and all that. But look, all I can say to the audience, I mean, really, is that we do have a lot of our young kids being brought up in our African cultural way. And you're a testament to that. I mean, that, you know, you're well-spoken and obviously very well read. And, you know, to add, I mean, I'm sure to add a little bit plus to your parents, I mean, they've been able to teach you the language, their own language, which is really great. So let me thank you again for being with us here, Ms. Judith. I mean, it's been a pleasure to bring you on and to talk to you about things that really matter to young Nigerian Americans or young American Nigerians. Either way, we're all Nigerians, and we're, in a large extent, all Americans too. So thanks for coming up.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Before I sign off, let me just give you a little bit of a take of what, and a point-blank opinion that I have. Look, there are a lot of bad things happening. Any death is very important. So be it black or white or blue or whatever, death is such a big loss. Just not to, obviously, we lose that person, but what about his family, the people he left behind and all that? So all that has to be bothersome. Now, obviously, what is also bothersome is the death by those that are supposed to protect us. But here's what I say about that. And just from the experience of what I have had in meeting with police officers, something usually has to go wrong, which is usually unfortunate, obviously. So that is one area that I think that people should be a little more concerned about. What goes wrong? Something goes wrong. I don't think there's any policeman, whether he's black, white, green, or whatever, doesn't wake up in his house in the morning and say, I'm going to kill a black person today. I don't think that happens. Something goes wrong, and that is what goes wrong and how they address it should become what we have to work on. Now, that's my point-blank opinion. I hope to see you all here next week, because we'll be right back here next week. And I haven't done this before, but I think next week we're going to have to talk about the Olympics. The Olympics by next week will be about 2 weeks away. And I think it's time I share with you my opinion or my views on Nigeria at the Olympics, this coming Olympics in Rio. So I'll see you all next week. Bye-bye for now.